Hi there. This slidecast is going to be a comparative analysis of Casa Loma 50 years ago and Casa Loma now, focusing on continuity and change over this time period. I will begin with a brief overview of Casa Loma, explain what's changed and what's stayed the same, and then conclude with a warrant. Why does this matter? I will propose that the preservation of Casa Loma, along with the changes which has been made into a tourist destination, allows for the community to step back into Sir Henry Powlett's life and into the times where castle existed. It is known as the closest one will ever get to a real castle. For this reason, it allows those who visit to imagine how life was in the 19th century. When thinking about the history of such a building, it is important to identify the purpose of its preservation. In this case, Casa Loma is a monument to its creator. The castle, located in Midtown Toronto, is regarded as a heritage landmark to represent the century-long history of romance, ambition, and passion. Now let's look at what's changed since it was built in 1914. The first aspect of change that is evident is the purpose of Casa Loma. First, it was a dream house for Sir Henry Powlett. Then it was a nightclub, and now it's a tourist attraction. In 1911, he drew up plans with architect A.G. Lennox to build his dream home known as Casa Loma, which means hill house. The castle that once represented a life asset of Sir Henry became a hotel and nightclub in 1927. Despite the success of Casa Loma, it still couldn't attract any buyers, so it stayed vacant from 1933 to 1937. The City of Toronto began operating Casa Loma as a tourist attraction by welcoming the Kiwanis Club of Western Toronto to perform in the castle. It is currently owned by the City of Toronto and is used as a tourist destination. It is one of North America's most popular tourist attractions, with over 650,000 visitors a year. In addition, it contains historical memories, ghost stories, architectural marvels, and military secrets. Another aspect of change is the renovations. As previously mentioned, Casa Loma wasn't originally designed as a tourist attraction or an event venue. However, since the City of Toronto became the owner of the property, $7.5 million was put into restoration, revitalization, and new technology. For example, there are 2 restaurants and a gift shop that were added to the building after Liberty Entertainment Group commenced in 2014 with the purpose of improving the landmark. Upgrades such as air conditioning, a theater, and a seasonal outdoor space were added. In essence, these features make Casa Loma a more desirable location for film, photo shoots, and private events. Apart from these slight changes and restoration of Casa Loma, the building itself has stayed the same. Casa Loma features nearly 98 rooms that are decorated with authentic furnishing and antiques to this day. In order to preserve the rooms, caution ropes are put around parts of what used to be Sir Henry Powlett's home. Another aspect that has not changed is its name. As Sir Henry Powlett had a love for fine art and architecture, when he found out that the previous owner had named the land Casa Loma, which means hill house in Spanish, he knew that this would make for a perfect home for him and his family. The preservation of a name alludes to the idea that you're preserving the identity of a place. If the name of Casa Loma changed when it was purchased, the association with its history could have been lost. For this reason, the association between the name and the heritage landmark is very important. Another aspect that stayed the same is its location. Although this seems obvious, sometimes there are places that are rebuilt in other parts of a city in order to make room for houses, malls, and other uses of the land. However, Casa Loma's placement was never moved. So, now that we've gone through the details about how Casa Loma has changed and the ways it has stayed the same, let's dig a little bit deeper into the importance of preserving a building. The questions I'd like to pose are, why should this matter? And what's the purpose of this monument? Firstly, Casa Loma is a monument to Sir Henry Powlett. So what, you might ask? Well, Sir Henry Powlett did a lot for the City of Toronto. The same year that Thomas Edison developed steam-generated electricity, Sir Henry thought it would be worthwhile to supply the electricity. He founded the Toronto Electric Light Company in 1883, and by the time he was 30, his company supplied a large amount of street lighting to the City of Toronto. Then, in 1902, he and his partners built the first Canadian hydro generating plant at Niagara Falls. As we can see, Sir Henry was a very important actor in the development of the city of Toronto. By keeping his home, it not only pays respect to Sir Henry Powlett, but is a remembrance of his legacy, a dream, and the history of how the city was developed. Buildings such as Casa Loma display the aesthetic and cultural history of a city in order to give individuals a sense of connection to the past. For this reason, it was important to preserve Casa Loma because, in the words of George Orwell, past events, it is argued, have no objective existence. The past is whatever the records and members agree upon. This means that if you eradicate history, such as Casa Loma, you are erasing the record of it. They are kept and not changed because they tell a story. As such, the importance of Casa Loma remaining the same is because monuments are forms of archives. They're the expression of ideas that tell a story. In this way, the story is the development of the city of Toronto and provides us with a representation of how life was back in the 1900s. Such records allow us to remember significant events, people, and appreciate the ways in which they were preserved throughout the years so we can have an appreciation of it. To conclude, cultural heritage affirms our identity and integrity as people. Preserving monuments such as Casa Loma ensures that people of a community have knowledge of a past event, people, and tangible objects that are culturally significant. Without these monuments, we wouldn't have a method of recollection of this time in history.